You guys know I love talking about loyalty programs and really want all food trucks to have some form of a loyalty program. Today I'm going to talk about what happens when inflation creeps into your loyalty program and may actually make it hurt your business. Thank you so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding all the information helpful to your food truck business, please become a monthly supporter of the podcast. Just hit the support button or follow the link in the description. Every little bit does help keep us going. Join our Facebook group. It's called Food Truck Training. We have a whole bunch of awesome members at all different levels, from brand new beginners to decades-old veterans. They've all got your back when it comes to helping you with your food truck. And again, thank you for listening. Come back tomorrow because you know I got plenty more to say when it comes to helping you and your food truck business grow.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
So a loyalty program comes in a lot of different forms. The two most common are the typical punch card, where the guest buys a certain number of products and then they get one free after they purchased all of the certain number. And then there's the typical points system, where the guest comes in and spends $1 and they get a point based on the total dollars they've spent. And then they can redeem those points for certain products that are on the menu or a discount. Both of those systems work really well. Obviously, the punch card is the least expensive because you can just print those yourself. It's a business card sized card, and then the guest just has to carry it. So there is that negative of the guest losing their loyalty card. And then there's the points system or the discount system or whatever the particular program is that you have that's operated by your POS system. And then the POS system does all the hard work as far as tracking and letting the guests know that they've accumulated enough points to get something. But let's talk about how inflation impacts those. Let's start with the punch card. Let's say that you have been in operation a few years and you started out with the simple punch card system and you sell a product, your main product. You want people to come to you and know you for this product. Let's just say it's a hamburger. So you're going to sell your hamburger with all the fixings and all the fancy stuff you do to it for $10. It cost you $2.50 to produce that hamburger. And this was back when you started, back in the day. So as inflation increases, that means the cost to you increases. So if you started your loyalty program, let's say before the pandemic, before we started seeing all this crazy runaway inflation, if you had your guest collect, let's say 10 of those and they get a free hamburger. So that means over the course of collecting 10 of those punches, they would have spent $100 with you at least. And in turn, you were going to give them $2.50 worth of product for the free hamburger. Now, from the guest standpoint, they're getting $10 free. But from your business standpoint, you're only giving away the $2.50 that it cost you to produce that burger. No problem. That's a nice trade you want to make all the time. Spend $2.50 to bring in $100 in sales. I would make that trade as many times as I possibly could. But as inflation starts, now that burger starts to cost you more and more. A lot of food truck owners are hesitant to increase their menu prices until it just becomes too painful. So that $2.50 cost to you burger ends up going to $3, maybe $3.50, $4. And at some point, you just got to raise the price. The good thing about a punch card system is when you raise the price, it doesn't impact the guest any because all they're doing is collecting punches. So each sandwich they purchase, they get a punch. So they don't care that the price has gone up because they know at some point they're going to get one free. So let's say that your prices go up to $4 and you have to raise your price to $16. That's keeping that 25% food cost that I recommend. So at the end of the 10 punches, the guest will have spent $160 and all that's going to cost you is the $4. Still a very, very good trade. But now let's talk about how inflation impacts a point system, and it actually hurts you. So think about the math. You start a point system where you're going to reward somebody. Let's say you still have that same hamburger and you're going to give them a point for every dollar they purchase. And at some point in the future, you're going to allow them to cash in those points to get a free hamburger. And you get to determine how many points it's required to get that hamburger. So let's say that you want them to spend $100, just like we had in the punch card scenario. So once they spend $100, you're going to allow them to cash in those 100 points that they've accumulated to get a hamburger, to get the free hamburger. So not a problem. It still costs you $2.50. They spent $100. You're a happy person. You'd make that trade all day long. But as inflation creeps in, you've got two issues. The first issue being your cost of goods. So eventually that $2.50 burger actually costs maybe $4. But again, $4 for 100 in sales, not a bad trade. But remember, at that point, you're running a much higher food cost. So your overall profitability has gone down, unless you also increase your menu prices. Now here's where the conundrum starts. You increase your menu prices, it makes it easier on the guests to accumulate those 100 points because your menu prices have increased. So let's say that you want to keep it at that 25% food cost that I recommend. So you increase your menu price to $16. So that lucky guest now only has to come visit you to accumulate the 100 points. They only have to visit you a little over 6 times instead of the 10 times you had originally envisioned, because now they're getting to that $100 level faster. So those 6 visits, they reach the $100, and now you're giving them away that $4 burger, which means that you're giving away basically a 40% food cost item. So how do you handle that? This is where it becomes tricky. Recently, Starbucks sat down and did the math on theirs and figured out that, oh my goodness, inflation is encouraging people to get to the plateaus quicker so they can redeem their points faster. And we're actually starting to be on the losing side of this proposition. So they changed some things about their loyalty program. One of the changes that they made that got a big bunch of flack was they changed their plateau to get a free coffee. And it's just a free plain coffee. They added on an additional 50 points, and the internet went crazy. Those additional 50 points was an additional $50 that people had to come spend, and they did not like that. So there was lots and lots of pushback because that's a big increase. But what people didn't push back against was something that Starbucks did at the same time. They lowered the point threshold for a different product, and they cut it by that same 50-point margin. So now this one particular product was easier to get a free one. But because it wasn't perceived as being a popular product, people freaked out. Oh my goodness, my free coffee now costs me so much more. Those people were the squeaky wheel, so to speak. Because internally, Starbucks looked at their sales mix and found this one product that they lowered the threshold for the free one was more popular than the plain coffee. So they made it easier for more of their guests to be able to achieve that free product. The internal sales mix from Starbucks revealed that younger people were going for the iced drinks and the older people were going for the free coffee. The younger people were buying more of the chilled drinks. And in sales mix terminology, those products were farther up the list than the free coffees were, or the basic coffees were. So Starbucks made a business decision that got a little bit of pushback, but it was all predicated on we've got to be able to make money with our reward system. Same thing with you. When inflation hits, if you're doing some type of point system, you've got to figure out at what point are you no longer making the kind of money you wanted to make by encouraging people to come in and gather up those points. You may have to make those adjustments in the rewards so that you're still profitable. But you got to make the decision based on numbers and math and then accept whatever pushback happens. So the bottom line is I want you guys to have a loyalty program. If you're doing the punch card, it self-corrects. But if you're doing a point system, you always got to keep in mind the math behind that point system and make those occasional adjustments and make them when it makes sense to your business. But then make them in a way that's not going to upset a bunch of your customers because you made it more difficult for them to get something free. Thank you so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding all the information helpful to your food truck business, please become a monthly supporter of the podcast. Just hit the support button or follow the link in the description. Every little bit does help keep us going. Join our Facebook group. It's called Food Truck Training. We have a whole bunch of awesome members at all different levels, from brand new beginners to decades-old veterans. They've all got your back when it comes to helping you with your food truck. And again, thank you for listening. Come back tomorrow because you know I got plenty more to say when it comes to helping you and your food truck business grow.